The brain opens because dollar means opportunity, but opportunity has a known quantity. Take that dollar. But we also feel suspicion. Whenever there's someone gives us an opportunity, like, what's the hook?
You're listening to the Elevate podcast, and I'm your host, Robert Glazer. Join me as I talk to world-class performers about how they build their capacity and reach greater heights in leadership, business, and life, and how you can do the same. Welcome to the Elevate podcast. Our quote for today is from Soledad O'Brien. Being an entrepreneur is a mindset. My guest today, Mike Michalowicz, was declared as one of the contenders for Patron Saint of Entrepreneurs by Simon Sinek. He's a serial entrepreneur who started several multi-million-dollar companies and uses his business to test and perfect ideas other entrepreneurs can use to excel. He's the co-author of the bestselling Entrepreneurship Simplified book series, which includes hits like Profit First, Clockwork, Get Different, and his latest, All In. Mike, welcome back to the Elevate podcast.
It's a joy to be a repeat guest. Thanks for having me, Robert.
You know, you're looking as dapper as always. Always my best dressed guest.
I dressed up for you.
So we dug a bit into your background on the first appearance on the show. That was episode 80 in 2020. I encourage people to check that out. For new listeners, can you tell us a little bit about your background, entrepreneurial journey, and also, like, I'm always, for the 2020 guests, I'm always curious around, like, what's changed for you since the pandemic or COVID?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So I'll give you the boring CV details.
Yeah.
I had two tech service businesses. One was a private equity exit. One was a Fortune 500 exit, and then became an angel investor. I'm currently actively investing again in 11 companies, and I also have direct input, meaning ownership operation, in about 3 other businesses. All being said, my core competency is I'm a business author. I love business. That's the boring CV stuff. It's like the brag sheet. And I actually don't even like saying it because people are like, oh, here comes some kind of, he's going to talk about himself.
All right. So what's the why behind that?
Yeah. The why. Yeah. This is the real story. So I become an angel investor because I think I'm a genius and I suck at it. Call myself the angel of death in retrospect. I kill businesses.
So I want to short the things that you're investing in, right? This is like the big short.
If Mike's in, short, and that's how you get rich. And it became a wake-up call. I lost every penny that I had made in my growing these businesses. And it started this reinvestigation of entrepreneurship. I think I brought complexity to it. I think I brought misunderstanding to it. And I'm on a quest to figure out how to make entrepreneurship really simple. And when I find something like Profit First, one of my books, or All In, a recent book I wrote, these strategies on leadership or profit are inevitably contrarian to what we've been told, but they work for me. And then I put it into a book to hopefully serve others. That's what So
let me ask you, this is interesting. I think for people who either entrepreneurs who sell their business or people that make some money or in leadership roles, they tend to go right into invest. And if I talk to someone in the first 6 months, it's great. 9 months, 2 years, like, I don't do that anymore. Yeah. So what is the mistake? I'll make one thought I've had, but then I want to hear your take on this. Like, what is the mistake, or why does this happen? Obviously being an investor and being an entrepreneur are a lot different. I also think for some entrepreneurs, like, they realize, like, people don't do it like they did it. This is not like a book a lot of people would read, but this is such a common occurrence. Yeah. So, and you've lived this, so tell us about it.
Yeah, I believe the reason is OPM, other people's money. When you or I build a business as a bootstrapper, every dollar matters. It's money out of our pocket that we're making decisions with. We feel that pain.
It's your personal guarantee too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
When I was going to these other businesses, there was always a justification, and it always made sense. Oh, we can use the money in these different ways, but they didn't feel the pain of that expenditure. So the expenditures become not thoughtful, frivolous at times. And then you have what's called a momentum effect. It's a sunk cost fallacy, where if I spend $1 and it's not working, instead of stopping it, most people say, I really should have spent $2. You see in the stock market all the time. Stock market is increasing. People are like, this is amazing. When the stock market tanks, they say, well, it can't be that I'm at fault here, or I should stop doing it. I should put more money.
This is the fundamental attribution error too. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, right. And exactly. They attribute themselves to being a genius.
Right. You're a genius when it goes your way, and it's the market when it doesn't.
And entrepreneurs are the same way. Like, I had these early successes. I'm like, oh, the only common factor is me. No. Listen, I was in computer crime investigation. That was one of the tech services businesses. Right when it started to happen in a big way, Enron was the breakthrough trial where computer forensics was massively important. Well, there was only a couple of providers. We got the case. So I'm like, I'm a genius. Right place, right time. It takes effort. It takes perspiration. I'm not discounting that.
Yeah.
But we put way too much value in us and not enough in timing and good fortune. That's why I think investing fails. Because I thought.
Well, it's also to be fair. It's also an angel investor is going to lose. And I don't think people realize they're going to get 90% of their bets are going to be worth zero, right?
Well, and I didn't realize those bets. That's why I didn't realize. It's gambling. It's legit gambling.
So you need at least 10 probably have an average chance of one. And now I understand why people don't understand this when they're looking at different sources of capital. But if only 1 out of 10's got to be then at least has to have a chance of being a 10x return. So a super interesting business that can't be more than $50 million, like it just won't pay back the other. So I never understood, like, why would you want it to high chance of failure? It's just that 90% failure and 10x equals 17% IRR. Like that's.
So I started investing again now, and I flipped the model. Maybe it's not unique, but for me it is. I'm not putting money into companies. I tell them I'm going to hire the experts that are going to give you the direction to turn this business, because these are people I know and trust, turnaround experts. But you're going to have to execute on it. And we're going to only use your dollars. We invested in 11 companies, 2023. We've turned around 5 of them, all profitable. One's actually becoming the rock star, and they're starting to grow.
So you just get equity then and for this? Is that how it works?
I don't even take equity. So that's the counter promise. I tell owners, don't give up equity because you're going to regret that 10 years from now. I said, I'll do it on contract. So I'm going to share in profitability. But I'm never going to take equity, so you retain control, and I'll do it for a limited period.
Kevin from Shark Tank.
What was that?
You're Kevin from Shark Tank. He likes this royalty stream.
Yeah, royalty stream, and I'll do it for a limited period too. I do it for a 5-year run. And I tell them at the end, I'm going to give you the keys back. So it's really appealing to the business owner, mitigates their risk, but I'm putting the onus on them to actually do the work.
And in those companies that failed, it sounds like it drove some of your books in terms of what were the principles or things that that you saw there. And I'm always separately, like, I'm always interested, like when a bank lends money, like there's recourse, and I've always thought like venture should just have a little recourse. It should have a little personal pain that you can't walk away and lose everyone else's money. Obviously you're losing all your equity. I don't know. That's always bothered me, but so that's a comment. And then the question was really what I assume some of your books were informed.
Yeah. So when Profit First is my most popular book, and the observation was that the general belief, which is a misnomer, but it's a belief, is that profit is an eventuality, that there's certain size a business has to have. And what I argue is profit is not an event, it's a habit. It needs to be baked into every transaction. And a business can be a brand new startup, bootstrap, one person working out of their kitchen, making $25,000 a year. That can be a profitable business and should be. And the irony is these businesses get bigger, they achieve the $1 million threshold, and like, that's where I turn a profit. And they don't. And then they hit 5, and then they hit 25, and it actually gets worse because there's more burden, more stress on the organization, and they haven't had a profit system in place. So every one of my books, I'll give you another example because this is maybe fresh to you. I wrote a book called All In. It's my new book. And the subtitle, How Great Leaders Build Unstoppable Teams. And what I did is I investigated, where does a team fall apart? And it's already in the recruiting phase. The research that's out there points to roughly 10% of hires are actually A players or top talent, perfect fits. The remainder are not going to stay long, or they're going to be low performers. I'm like, this is absurd. Why do we have such low success? Well, I found in one industry, they have about a 90% success placement rate. And it's a $1 trillion industry. It's the sports industry. So I'm like, well, what do sports teams do that we don't? They don't interview and say, where's the green light on a traffic light? They say, get in the field and demonstrate. So demonstrative skills assessments are way underutilized. Get people in for a practical and doing the work.
We've always used, I'm 100% on page with you. As you know, there's this whole feel of like your free work and I'm like, give them a fake thing. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, it can have no value to the organization, but it needs to look and feel like the job, right?
And honestly, it's the fairest thing for both parties. You got to evaluate them, but they get a sense for the culture. They're present.
Right. Yeah.
And that works. There's one other part, which almost no one does, which is the best part, I think, for recruiting. And teams do this. They run camps. So I played, just to give context, I played lacrosse in high school. I was a average athlete. Well, I went to a camp called Hobart. This is a college. And what I didn't realize in the moment, but see in retrospect, there's 500 athletes there. You're tapping kids on the shoulder saying, hey, you're demonstrating good skills. Go to another field so we can teach you more. They're actually filtering out who they want to invite in to be athletes there. I was not picked. But the irony is I actually played collegiate lacrosse, and I'd argue that camp was a turning moment in my experience. They elevated 500 students, and then
they got to cherry pick. Right?
And they got cherry pick.
Yeah.
We, as organizations, why aren't we educating people on what we do? If I own a pizza shop, instead of saying, hey, we're hiring a pizza maker, say, learn how to make pizza at home. Right. Come on into our shop for one day. You will find a recruiting base, a talent base there. Home Depot does this, and people don't know it. They do these birdhouse workshops. Next time you go to Home Depot, watch. They'll have two staff members, one teaching, one observing. The observer is tracking who is the biggest participant. Everyone's learning about Home Depot. You're ingratiated with the story.
I've seen they have these project things on Saturday.
And then they tap in the shoulder and say, you're really into this. You're helping other parents. You ever consider working at Home Depot? We'd love to talk to you about it. They recruit.
Yeah.
We can do the same thing through education.
Well, let's flip back because I would think that you're having a renaissance in your Profit First book, because we're coming off the zero interest rate decade of which everyone that came out of business school and stuff knew how to scale, and they were taught about scale, and everyone played like every market was a winner take all market, like Uber or eBay, but they weren't. Right. Yeah. But you had people spending money like that, like in subscription services and clothing and stuff where it wasn't marketplace dynamic. I have a theory, and I'm curious, I think it's, as you said, it's not a switch that's easily flipped. It becomes a psychology. I'm not sure that these leaders that knew how to scale know how to do profit. It's not just a switch, because the hardest thing in a business is product market fit. And I don't know a better demonstration of product market fit than someone paying you something that you can deliver profitably. My famous example is food delivery, right? So we all love a DoorDash or a food delivery or Blue Apron. So during COVID, when they were charging a 10% overhead, you're like, I love this service. This is great. As they had to kind of get to economics that work, and they charge 35%. And my kids, I'm like, hell no, you're not ordering that. Right. So it's out, the price of the service is part of me determining with a client whether there's product market fit. And I just think we deviated from this for a decade, and everyone forgot about this concept. And I think you alluded to it, but I don't know that people know how to just flip a switch on it.
Hey, I think you're right. I was saying, trust people's wallets, don't trust their words. That includes our own. We trust our own, I had a friend who was starting a business, and he asked his friends saying, what do you think about this? It's the worst hypothetical question on the planet. Your friends, the people around you, say, that's genius. I would. Anytime someone says, I would, do not trust what they say after. I would buy that in a heartbeat. And so we move on these theories, and then the market responds by shuddering. So we have to test the market. We have to sell. And that's why I'm such a proponent for profitability. It needs to happen in the early days. If you can't be profitable small, there's no way you can be profitable big.
Yeah.
And a couple people do pull it off. There's a couple of miracles, and you hear in the news Twitter finally turned a profit after 17 years, which I don't think they have. But someone finally pulls a profit, and we're like, well, that's the path. No. For the rank and file, which is 99% of us business owners, you got to be profitable and prove that from the very beginning.
Right. And those are those marketplace monopoly models where it really does winning and first mover advantage matters. The venture community convinced everyone that every market was like that. And they gave us blank in a box, which I say is every subscription service in the world where again, it's not a marketplace. At some point, if I don't want to get this thing every month because it doesn't make sense for me to do it because I got 3 years of razors, or 2 years of shampoo, that's not really a customer value prop. Perfect example, I think, of what you would say, trust the wallet. I made coffee forever. I think spending money at $6 a day on a latte and stuff is ridiculous. I yell at my kids for it. I'm not paying. Made on coffee, drip coffee, whatever. Then I was at someone's house and I had a couple of Nespressos, and I hadn't really had it. I was like, wow, this is really good. We ordered it. I'm now ordering a ton of Nespresso every month. I am spending much more now on coffee than I ever would have told you I would, because it's good. It's easy. I like it. It works for our gas. So again, as you're saying, my wallet is seeing something different than my brain would.
You're speaking the truth. Yeah, that's exactly true. We got to pay attention to that. So I do a technique I call sell the tell with small businesses. What I tell them is, if you have a new idea, announce that you have a new strategy before you spend the time investing, developing it, and just say, here's my thoughts and here's the bullet points. Do say, what do you think? And are you willing to put down a deposit? And that's actually where the truth comes out in these market tests. Because if people are willing to put down money in the beginning based upon your idea, then you know you have something that's palatable. But if people say, well, it's a great idea, but I'm not ready to pay even a small portion toward it, they're saying your idea sucks.
It's interesting. I got an update from a company that I am, and two things are true. We've over romanticized the pivot, in the world. And like, sometimes I think I have a saying, like, we way too follow on the exceptions and not the rules. Like the Slack pivot has almost not been repeated by anyone in 1,000 tries. Right. So you can romanticize that all you want, but there's only one Michael Jordan every generation. Like some things like just whatever. At the same time, like this entrepreneur was pretty honest about like, I don't think we have perfect. They're religious about finding product market. What's the thing that people love and it's easy to sell? And they don't try to justify why the poor market fit is going to work or otherwise.
Right, good.
They're really pretty religious around like, we need to change the customer value proposition, which I think is the only.
100% great.
Yeah.
You shared a story, I think it was you yesterday with me when we were talking about the Dollar Shave Club and how they can't even repeat their own. I was like, I sat on that. I was like, that is such a great point. So they make that one video that gives them explosive exposure.
Viral video,
And so they said, and so does everyone else, make a great video. It's like saying, oh, just become a Taylor Swift. Like a person will get that. That is not the common path.
Yeah.
And it's futile to try to replicate that, I feel, because there's such costs involved with that, with very little potential for return.
Yeah, I need to write something else. Maybe this will be the development. But there's something I've seen in business. I've talked about, for an example, like to me, we celebrate exception when if you can make high probability decisions over, this is like blackjack, right? You play the book, because if you play the book, there are winners and losers and streaks, but you're going to win. You have the best chance of winning by playing the book. It's not that sometimes that you can't get really lucky or not lucky. And so I see something like, we never made counteroffer because the data said that 90% of people were gone in 18 months who accepted and make a counter. So I'd be like, look, if it's a 90% failure rate, then our policy is just not, but someone's going to be like, we got to save Mike and I'm like, but you're betting on something that's the 10%. If we have data in our organization to say that something is 90% success or 90% failure, we should apply that rule unempathetically. We should hit on 16 and hold on 17. Like it just, people fall in love with the exceptions too much.
I will tell you one thing that does seem to work. Maybe not for maybe for the exception, but when the owner operator, those are communities I focus in. So a typical business for me is under 5 million that I'm working with. So it's owner operator. And when they are on a path that is a calling, meaning they just feel such purpose in it beyond the income, those folks, I give them the hedge. I give them a little more potential because they're just not going to stop.
Yeah.
The problem is they may become so blinded.
That's more, you're talking about the whole business. I'm talking about more like maybe things within it, right?
Yeah, no, I'm talking the whole business. Yeah. But I will tell you, sometimes they become blinded by, this is what I am called to do, and there is no product.
But they would rather, I'm with you. They're so called to do it that they would rather do it if there's no money and it's a calling and it's not like they're just all in on.
Yeah. So, but they're relentless in finding the answer. So it was interesting. I had to call this guy Jim Manning in the business. I think it's called Third Door or something, but basically built a business, not his passion, but made a lot of money in this journey.
Was Third Door the luxury rental business?
No. These are Okay. This is, they get people, they help people buy homes that could have never had the chance otherwise. Yeah. And he's like, I'm called to do this. But what was so interesting about his story is he's going through it. He goes, the model as we pitch it doesn't work. So he goes, we go to investors, we raise $5 or $10 million, but you got to tell people you're going to get 15% returns. And he goes, if you're helping people that can't afford homes to give them also 15%, they can't afford a home. So the model doesn't work. So he goes, we had to tweak it and we'd adjust it. And we had to find people that are philanthropically oriented to be the initial donors, but we're able now to get people in homes and the business is profitable and sustainable. And as a result, he says, I think it was whatever the government agency is, out of 100 applicants that go for a home ownership, 3% get it. Their program now, 60%. He goes, that's not where I want to be. I want to be at 85 or 90%, but we're at 60% now. And he's made it profitable. And I was like, this guy had to go through a year, probably before that, more of hell trying to figure this out. A lesser person, myself, have given up because I don't care about that. But he had that purpose. He kept on trying to find it until he found the solution. And now it looks like he's on it. I think he's got this last year, he homed, I think it was 300 or 400 people. And this year, the realistic expectations around 1,000 people that wouldn't have had homes otherwise. That's why I
I had Annie Duke on earlier about her book and talking about when.
Is she the poker player?
Yeah. And her book is it's called Quit. It's really good. When do you quit and when do you not quit? And there's people that have quit too early and there's people that have quit too late. And she said, culturally, we celebrate, we culturally, we don't celebrate, but we sort of look negatively on the quit too early, even though we have no idea. And the quit too late, we're like, oh, it's obvious, And so like society has a sort of, some people, one of the reasons that the Slack pivot happened, she goes a lot into, is because he quit on his earlier business and basically said to the investors, this isn't going to work. We can't get the return. We're going to give you our money back. Separate conversation was, however, like, this thing that we built while we were doing this seems to have a lot of excitement and people are into it. Like, would any of you be interested in it? And the pivot's a little bit of a misnomer because again, they sort of shut the door on the first business. And actually Slack never would have existed if they didn't.
That's so interesting. I was talking with Landon Ray. He's the founder of Entrepreneur earlier this week. He shared the exact same story. So I didn't know the origin story. They had another business and I can't remember what they did, but they needed a better CRM.
Yeah.
And it was just constant frustration, he said. So they just started creating their own. He was in the YPO community. He's like, yeah, some YPOers are like, hey, can you give me access to this? And they did, and like, we love it. And he's like, oh my God, I got a business. And now Entrepreneurs is pretty ubiquitous name in the small business arena for CRM, email campaigns, and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess if you fix your
solve
own
your
problem,
own problem. Yeah. Have a passion on it. So
as
I said before, your thought leadership is really connected around your Entrepreneurship Simplified series. You've got 6 books in there. What is your thought on entrepreneurial education? I always think it's pretty funny when a business school or an HBS teaches entrepreneurship. Probably by some person who's never. I'm like, is the first class like making payroll? Like that should the first session. So like what is? I know I think your books are filling a void, but what is it? Is it the school of hard knocks, or do more entrepreneurs need to? You can't teach the passion, as you said. You can't teach the what North Star, but it is the tactics that ultimately sink a bunch.
It's even hard to teach past the blindness. We put up these blinders to stay the course a certain way. We believe we're right. So it's the ultimate irony in entrepreneurship. You have to have a unrealistic belief in your success and potential and your idea to go after this. So the fact that you're disconnected from realism is your biggest ally, and then it becomes your biggest enemy. So when you're actually now operating this business, we just have this fantasy we keep playing out. So I think we do need the wake up calls. We had a friend in the family who had a heart attack recently and said, oh my God, I got to stop smoking. Yeah, we've all been barking this at you for the last 20 years. I think in businesses, we need to have some painful moments in order to say, is there an alternative way? I don't think the education is through formal education, even though they may have some good stuff in there, or maybe it's all good stuff.
But you need it there when you have
you need
it
there when you need it.
Yeah. I always say everyone who ever got serious about hiring better, it was driven by a travesty hire that almost killed them. Right.
Correct. And they had an imminent need now. It's like, I got to get this right.
Right. I can't make that. That was so painful. I can't do that again.
And our mind, the information then becomes sticky. So that works. We're really focused in on it and we retain stuff. So these formal education, you're just going through this linear progression. Half that stuff maybe is relevant someday. So our mind just passes on. So, and I lean toward books. I'm a huge consumer of books. That's why I write them. Every business challenge I've navigated, a book has been the ultimate resource for me. Dollar for dollar, you can't beat them in my opinion. You're writing them fast. So let's talk about some of the ones since we last spoke. So first, Get Different, which is obviously about marketing. And I've always said, like, I've been focused on the marketing. There's a lot of people with the best idea or better dog food out there. If people don't know about it, or you don't have a cost-effective way for them to know about it, like, it doesn't make you more successful. So talk about some of the key differentiators you recommended in that. Yeah, I think I dare say this is one of the most important books I've written, because it talks about how consumers perceive what we're offering. The biggest barrier is not the gatekeeper, or whatever those terms are we use. It's actually our own mind. There's a part of our brainstem called the reticular formation. You probably heard of reticular activating system. Those are the Anthony Robbins types of stuff. Like, oh, if you see something here, you'll see it there. And that's amazing and true. The reticular formation, though, is a actual neural net sitting on top of our brain, and its primary function is to ignore. And the reason is, if it was open, if all inputs came in, sight, smell, touch, we'd be overstimulated. It would freeze us, probably kill us. So we suppress and reject 99.9% of stimuli around us at any given moment, including right now. The reticular formation opens up for only three things: threats, someone's going to harm me; opportunities, something I know is of value; and something that's unexpected. I don't know what that is. Our mind has to open up. And the thing that illuminates our mind is the unexpected, because it could be a new threat, could be a new opportunity, or it could be disqualified and ignored in the future. If you do what everyone else is doing, the neural network there has been programmed. It's called habituation to ignore. I'll give you just an example. It's very practical. I was talking with a large photography association, and I asked these photographers, it was literally 5,000 people, and I asked them to do a survey. I said, how do you market? All of them the same way. I send out postcards when graduation season comes with my 5 favorite portraits and say, graduation season's upon us, get your portrait. And what's this response rate? Like 0.1%.
If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And here's the thing. The consumer's already programmed. You and I get the junk mail all the time. We don't even get back from the mailbox into the house. It's already in the recycle bin. So how do you break through it? Now, here's what's interesting. When it comes to being different, people are very afraid to do it. That's another psychological response. I went to these photographers, 5,000 of them, 2 took me up, and 2 of them crushed it. Here's what we did. I said, well, what does no one do? That's the first way to start with being different. They say, well, everyone sends out these photographs. No one sends out like the frames for the photographs. I'm like, oh, okay. Let's send out an empty frame. And here's what we did. The mailing campaign was an empty frame, and it simply had a message in the middle. It said, most photographs go in the cloud. The ones you cherish go in frames. We'll make the ones you cherish. The call rate skyrockets. Now, what happens is the consumer, you get something in mail now. First of all, it's like, this is weird. What is this? You open it. That's your reticular formation opening up.
It's like the people that send $1, right? A lot of times you're like, I got to open this. I see money in this, right? Yeah. I know that that's a gimmick, but it actually forces you to.
It forces you to open it, but for a different reason. So I'll give you as a case study. I argue that's actually a very bad method. The brain opens because dollar means opportunity, but opportunity has a known quantity. Take that dollar. But we also feel suspicion. Whenever there's someone gives us an opportunity, like, what's the hook? So most people grab that dollar and say, what are you trying to get from me? You're trying to milk me? You want me now to give you $100 back in a charitable donation? Screw you. So it actually gets resistance, what I find in my research. So the dollar works for people to take it, but rarely do you get the response rate you want to. The different with the frame, this goes in and the people are like, what is this? They open it and it's something so unexpected that many people have to evaluate this. Is this an opportunity? Is this a threat? Can I disregard it? And so they took the next step and say, well, who is this business? And that's why the call rates went up so much.
Well, there's something in that I've also seen a lot that aligns with the principle of what you're saying. It seems like successful things are new, but have a piece of old in it or understanding, right? Yeah. Where people are like, I get this. Like, it's actually very hard to get people to buy things that are so new that they don't understand it.
Correct.
Versus, like, again, they understand a picture frame and goes in it. That was a new way of doing it. But I find that, like, you need a little bit of, like, the old, or like, what is this? Or why do I need this? Or else.
That's right. So that's for the caloric burn in our brains. When something is new and unexpected, and have no parameters of understanding, we now have to make a decision. Am I going to process this enough to figure out what this is? And our brains are designed to save calories. So usually the safest bet is disregard, unless we see it as a threat. So if someone sends you an envelope and powder comes out, that may be new, it may be unexpected, but you're like, this could be a threat. You will spend the caloric burn to save your life, call the police, do whatever it is. But if I send you a letter with blinking lights and it says, amazing new opportunity, all you have to do is call this 1-800 number and there's nothing else. Now it's like, I become suspicious. Is this worth it? It's actually better to walk away. So you do have to have a taste of something they already trust in that new unexpected thing.
That's why the nostalgia.
That's why nostalgia works. Yeah.
There's comfort in it. There's a little bit.
And you're protected.
Yeah. Like when you're trying to explain something to a grandparent or whatever, you're like, oh, it's like this, right?
Right.
It's like
Exactly.
Apple News. It's like your magazines at the store and you get a preview cover of it. Like it's like a reference point to what they understand.
Exactly. It's like your old buckskin shoes you used to put on when you walked up to school, both hill, both ways in the snow, Grandpa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So back to All In, which is your newest, again, not a poker strategy. But you talked a little bit about the core problem with team building and leadership. Talk a little bit more about like what were you trying to invest with this book? And I'm curious about your FASO act.
Oh yeah. So I was looking at the three kind of key elements that we're looking to achieve. We want to recruit the best people. We want to keep the best people, retain, and we want to raise the bar for our team. So how do we go about it? So ultimately what came out of it is FASO. There's four elements we need to take or observe to get to those levels of high performance. F stands for fit. And I already shared the techniques with you. How we traditionally do fits is we do these interviews and say, I feel they're a good fit. Like we get along.
And by the way, that word is like loaded these days, which we can talk about. Maybe not as much today as it was 2 years ago, but I have some strong opinion
about the word fit.
Yeah, like cultural fit, I think is really important. But I think, maybe at the height of a year, everyone's like, oh, like that's exclusive, and and like fit doesn't mean clone, right?
Exactly.
Right, but people were using it pejoratively, like this is not a clone, but organizations have to have some common principles that people rally around.
Common principles, but not. It's so funny. So in the book, I talk about the collapse of culture and the rise of community. Culture was, here's my value set. I better find people that replicate that. And it's caused this myopic tunnel vision for organizations,
right?
Which is dangerous. Community, think about the town you live in. It's probably a lot more diverse than your business, right, but somehow it works. And actually, sometimes the best of the community comes out.
It works if everyone has a few respect is a core thing. So you can have this sign or that sign, but as long as we're respect, like you can't have a community without, and I agree that when the values are collective, that's how you build a community. When you're trying to replicate someone's individual, obviously there's a dotted line to those. But the flip side to me, I always say is like, look, if I'm hardcore religious, right? I'm happy to be friends with atheists, but I don't, and this is a hypothetical, but I don't want them in my Bible study group, right? Like that group meets for a specific purpose that I don't want someone coming in and fighting with me every day that like there is no God, right? Like that's fine. I can be friends with them separately, but that group has a few common things around them that are important. Yeah,
that's correct. And we'll talk about why communities are so strong in a second. It's called collective ownership. So it's a little teaser. But the A in FASO stands for ability. And we talked about that too. Yeah. Assessments and stuff. Make sure we need people to demonstrate their abilities. But there is one ability that is least tapped into, which is most important. So most of us look for what's called experiential ability. We've done in the past. Some of us look for innate ability. That's Myers-Briggs and stuff. Those are great. The 80%er that most people aren't looking at is potential ability. Potential is how could this person perform in the future if they were doing what they love to do? And I know that sounds like, yeah, of course that's what we want, but that's impossible. It's very possible.
Yeah.
The analogy I use in the book is Eddie Van Halen. A lot of people, if I had a band and if Eddie Van Halen's still alive and I want to play 80s rock music, he's the guy I want. I could never get him. He's got his own band. He makes millions. But I could absolutely gotten Eddie Van Halen when he was 12 years old because that's when he started to reveal his potential. So the question is, how do you get people to reveal potential? I could have put on a guitar class. We talked about that earlier. And I say, hey, to all the 12-year-olds, come on in. Now, my job when I run this class is to teach, but also to observe, just like Home Depot. And you look for three things. First, curiosity. I mean, do they show up? Do they ask questions and stuff? Then desire. Desire means they want to repeat it over and over again. But the highest level, and this is where real potential is thirst. Thirst is where you can't quit it. Eddie Van Halen played the guitar 13, 14 hours a day. He actually called it his best friend when he was 12 years old.
Can't teach that, right?
Can't teach that. Yeah. But you could have observed that. And by age 13, you got someone that's got such potential. You could have said, hey, Eddie, why don't we get a little band going? I'd love to get you a little contract quickly. Start teaching people, look for ability and look for that thirst element. Desire and thirst are what you want. S stands for safety. There's a thing called psychological safety, but there's also physical safety. We need to set up an environment where people don't feel that they have to curtail who they are. They can express.
So this
themselves
is that
fully.
the person is not a bully, right? Is that
Right,
sort of the, yeah.
Right. We had a physical safety concern here. I had no idea. So we ran a survey to our office here and said, does anyone ever feel physically unsafe? It's anonymous to share. 4 or 5 people said, yeah, the alleyway. So we have an alleyway that goes to the parking lot behind our building. It's dark. They said, starting at noon, I'm thinking about going to my car at 5 or 6 o'clock tonight, and it's going to be pitch black in the middle of the winter. I'm kind of scared. So we just installed string lights, and bing, people can be more focused on work. So there are safety concerns, both physical and psychological. The coolest part I thought was ownership. I refer to that collective ownership. That's the O in FASO. The most common refrain I hear from business owners is, I wish my employees would act like owners. So I'm like,
Except
okay.
I'm not giving them a penny, right? That is usually I always find that's the conundrum. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to pay them anything.
I want to pay them like employees, but I want them to act like owners.
But they want to act like me. And I would argue you actually can do it. So there was this research done by this guy named John Pierce back in the 1980s called psychological ownership. And he found there are 3 variables that make people feel like owners, and there is no monetary exchange. They are the ability to personalize something, the ability to control something, and the ability to have what was the other thing? Personalization. Oh, and have intimate knowledge. The more detail you have. So I'll give you an example in cars, because this plays out so easily. If I rent or you rent a car, Robert, the way we treat it is different than the car you own. Why? The car I rent, there's obligations put upon me. There's expectations. You can only drive a certain mileage, or there's a penalty. You can't take it outside the country. It can be no dents or scratches. It needs to be clean. So when people are forced to comply, we seek to defy. I will elbow out. I'll definitely drive that car more aggressively. I'll peel out when the light turns green.
Right. Your own car has no rules, but it's your car. You have some pride in it. Right?
Correct. Yeah. So why do we treat it? Now, here's the irony. Most people who own cars don't own their own cars. It's the government, not the government, the banks that own it. We have a leases, car payment due. So we actually don't have legal ownership, but we treat it differently. There's 3 elements. Yeah. The rental car, I don't program the radio station in there. I don't put a bumper sticker on it or a window sticker. My own car, every station is programmed to my liking. I will put a bumper sticker on it if I want to. Personalization gives people a sense of ownership over it. That's step 1. Step 2 is intimate knowledge. When I get a rental car, I don't open the glove compartment. Where's the owner's manual and flip through it? And what does this doohickey do? I just want to drive aggressively. My own car, which I have my bank payments due, my own car, the day it comes in my driveway, I'll sit outside for 2 hours going through the manual in the freezing cold just so I can do every bell and whistle.
You wipe the first few scratches off of it, right?
Yeah. Intimate knowledge. I want to know everything about it. I'll look under the car, pop the hood for the first time ever and the last time ever. And then the last part, so I have intimate knowledge, I have personalization, it's control. The rental car, they tell you what to do, where it can go. They even have a GPS tracking you. My car, I can drive when I want. It's ready and available for me. I have control over it. Well, we can deploy these techniques with our colleagues. What we do is we give them the ability to personalize things. How do you want this to look? Make it your own. We don't have an accounting system. We have Kelsey's accounting, is what we call it. Little things like that make it more personalized. The second thing is give them intimate knowledge. Training actually makes people feel more like they own something, the more they know it, and then control over it. They get to determine the outcomes. So as a leader, instead of saying, here's the steps you need to do, you say, let's agree to the outcome we want. And then how do you want us to get there? Now,
if you're going to hire someone and tell them how to do it, why hire them, right? You just want to hire them and then you want them to sign up I sign up to do that, right?
Now, there's one downside. You can get what's called a fiefdom. A fiefdom is where I have all the knowledge, I have all the control, all the personalization, and I'm not going to allow anyone else to do it. So what you do is you have multiple people responsible for one thing. It's called collective ownership. If you have a dog at home and you're married, we do, that's our dog. So when you start hearing employees saying, this is your company, they have no sense of ownership. When they say this is our company, they have collective ownership. When they say this is the job, no ownership. When they say this is my job, they're starting to have psychological ownership. Those are things we need to invoke, and it doesn't cost $1.
So one thing you said in there, I've talked a lot about, I'm super fascinated, and I'm sure you'll have some good insight. Psychological safety. So psychological safety is a little like the fort, right? In terms of we kind of know what it is, but we don't know how to define it. Do we know how to improve it? It's sort of this amorphous thing. What in your mind, what are some of the cultivating psychological safety within a team? Because I think everyone agrees that it's important, but I'm not sure that people agree what it is or how to address it.
Yeah, so it's roughly defined as the ability to express myself fully and completely without retribution or consequence negatively, right? That's what psychological safety is. I've only found that you can execute through demonstrative experiences. It inevitably starts with a leader saying, here's me. It's showing the warts and the flaws, but it's also with balance. Like, you don't want to go so deep that people are like, what the F is going on here? Yeah. It's over a slow reveal. It was interesting. One of the case studies in my book,
the reveal, there's the reveal, but there's all the other piece of it is sort of the feedback. How do people see that feedback is taken? Right. Because someone's being vulnerable, and then they see, I said, like, I'm worried about this idea, and they watch, does that person get eviscerated or do they get listened to?
It's the exchange of small risks.
Right.
So you have to put the first risk out there and just let it sit. Then when they take the first risk, there can be no negative consequence. So if they say, could you imagine an employee comes and says, I am a little bit embarrassed about this, but I just want to tell you, I was so mad at a client yesterday, I told him to F off. And I actually said the full word. Some boss will say, are you kidding me? That's not our. If you say, you know what, I get it, and we're going to navigate this together with them, but I'm human too. I actually just yelled that out at my wife yesterday, and I'm embarrassed. There are these little risks we take with each other to find safety. And so it's an exchange that happens over time.
And in that first example, they will never tell that person anything. Right.
If you slam them,
Yeah. And I'm blanking on his name, the hedge fund guy. He had a thing, principles, Ray Dalio. Yeah. He had this mistake log, right? And the principle was like, it was never a fireable offense if you made a mistake, but it was a fireable offense to not put it in the mistake log, because his belief was if people wouldn't bring the small mistakes they made, and in a hedge fund and financial service, then they would bury them, and then they would have huge things. Yeah. So again, like, it's been said in that case, right? And to your example, like, look, like, I get how this happens, but that's not us, and we can't do this. And I appreciate, talking through it. But if you admonish the person, or you would, like, that is the last time you hear about it direct.
Yeah, 100% agree. So that one study we had, it was a lawyer who is of Latin descent, but kind of cloaked it. She didn't look Latin, but was fluent in Spanish. What was interesting, she would stay at work until the very end of the day when everyone left working overtime. And then the janitor would come, who also spoke Spanish, and she would just sit there just to rekindle her Spanish connection. And she never talked about it. And she was afraid, because was there consequence? Would there be judgment because of this? And the longer she held it, she was afraid there would be more consequence. But the leader of the company just started being open about their own lives and their own culture and their own tradition. She says, I'm of Latin descent, and this is how we celebrate. And it was embraced. And all that worry time that she had held up, pent up, went away. It's just a shame it didn't happen earlier. And it sounds like, well, she could have spoken out about it, but she felt the culture wasn't inviting that. It took a leader first saying and talking openly about herself before this lawyer could start speaking about herself.
Yeah. Any of these things always come like, it's not going to happen if you don't do it else. So quickly to wrap up, I thought something we were talking about yesterday, I just think it's interesting. So one of the signs to me, like, of sort of a good leader, entrepreneur, is like, when conditions change, tactics, right? And you've like published a ton of books, and now you're thinking, I think you and a bunch of other authors are watching the publishing industry change and are thinking about some new models. So talk about this at a high level, because I've talked to leaders about this. I'm like, look, if you're going to fight this change, like, the best sign to me of some like leadership or intelligence is like acknowledging circumstances have changed and changing approach, not banging the old tool on the same radio.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm seeing. So the whole publishing industry is changing. And so I'm getting involved in that in a new, unique way. But also the whole writing industry is changing because of AI.
Yeah.
And what I find so interesting about AI so far is it seems to, and this is just my judgment, be triggering this kind of very myopic communication style. And you or I or anywhere in the world, if we say, what's the best way to manage a firm? It comes back with this one best practice opinion. I feel that we're heading to a more and more or less diverse considerations or ideas around how businesses are operated or anything. So, and it's so cheap and easy. Anyone can write a book by saying, literally, you can write the words, write a 60,000 word book on management right now. You're done. But you're going to.
However, I think when these AI detection tools are embedded in anything, there's going to be a rush towards authenticity. So it's going to be all interesting and weird. Yeah.
I think we're in the age of creativity, expression, and kind of like art. Art used to be, if you could paint a portrait of someone as realistically as possible, that was it. And then the technology came about where you took a picture and it actually was better than the artist's work. So the artist
or the $10 million bill.
Yeah, right. He straps on them. Yeah, but people are saying now I'm going to do these slashes and lines and stuff that it can't be captured by the mechanisms. I think we're entering a realm of creativity with writing, but it first has to go into the dearth of cloning and replicating and the same old garbage. It costs nothing now, and it's going to come out faster and faster and faster. But I think the leading authors are going to redefine it and say, here's these crazy, innovative ideas. These things are unthinkable by machines, but only humans can create. That's, I think, the future of writing. That's very ambiguous. I can't say here's the tactical way or how it's going to play out, but I just see this very narrow messaging coming out from the computers over and over again. And that won't last.
All right. Well, Mike, where can people learn more about you and your work?
Go to ChatGPT. It just say, give me the answers to everything. You can go to MikeMichalowicz.com, but my shortcut, because Michalowicz is difficult to spell, is Mike Motorbike, as in motorcycle. And I never driven a motorcycle. It was a nickname in grade school because it rhymed. It's the only PG nickname of my life. But MikeMotorbike.com. I write for the Wall Street Journal. You can get my articles there. All my books, you can get chapter downloads. Plus, I'm going to be doing a new podcast coming soon. That's available right there.
All right, Mike, thanks so much for coming back. Always enjoyed chatting, particularly 2 days in a row, and look forward to having you back. With 2 more books, we'll have you back. We'll have you back again.
You got a deal. Thanks for having me, Robert.
All right, to our listeners, thanks for tuning into the Elevate podcast today. We'll include links to Mike and his work on the detailed episode page at robertglazer.com. If you enjoyed today's episode or the Elevate podcast in general, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a review. It's what helps new users discover the show and great guests like Mike the most. If you're listening in Apple Podcasts, just select the library icon, click on Elevate, scroll to the bottom, and leave a rating or review. You can be done by the time you've had a few sips of your. Thanks again for support. And until next time, keep elevating.